There's this age-old debate about religion and morality. Do you need God to be good? Are they two sides of the same coin, or are they completely separate things? It's a question that shapes our societies, our politics, and who we are. But today we're going to dig into a different idea. What if we've been asking the wrong question this whole time?
Okay, so let's start with one side of this. For a lot of people, especially in the West, this seems pretty obvious. Religion is about finding truth with a capital T. Its job is to answer the huge questions. Why are we here? What's the universe all about? It's a system of beliefs designed to give us the ultimate facts. But then, of course, there's the other perspective. This view says, hold on, maybe religion isn't about cosmic truth so much as it is about human behavior. Maybe its main function is to give us a moral playbook, to get us to cooperate and be decent to each other. It's less about what you believe and more about what you do. And this is where it gets really, really interesting, because pitting truth against goodness might be a total false choice. It just assumes we all have the same definition of religion or truth, but we don't. And asking this simple question might actually be hiding a much deeper, way more fascinating story about how our minds are wired.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to tear down that flawed question. Then we're going to look at two unseen engines working inside our heads, our natural instincts for religion and our built-in moral foundations. We'll see how culture acts as this master connector, wiring those engines together, and then what happens when you pour the gasoline of modern media and money on top. We'll wrap it all up with a powerful story that I think really brings it all home. All right, so first things first. The big problem with the question, is religion about truth or morality, is that the words themselves are just super slippery. Any simple yes or no answer is going to miss the point because there's a ton of complexity hiding just under the surface.
It turns out our modern Western idea that religion is all about a list of beliefs you have to agree with, that's actually a pretty narrow view. For so many of the world's traditions, religion is something you do. It's rituals, it's contemplative practices, and, it's moral behavior. The truth of it might not be about a creation story being factually accurate, but about its power to totally transform a person's life. So to really get this, we have to go deeper than just culture. We need to peek inside our own skulls and look at the cognitive toolkits we're all born with. This is what we're calling our first unseen engine. And that brings us to this incredible field, the cognitive science of religion. Basically, what it says is that our brains come with certain default settings, certain predispositions, that make religious-like ideas feel really intuitive and easy to catch on to. This isn't about proving any one religion right or wrong. It's about asking why the human mind all over the world is so receptive to these kinds of concepts in the first place. So let's break down this toolkit. First off, our brains are hypersensitive agent detectors. We see intentions and minds everywhere. That makes it super easy to imagine beings that have minds but no bodies, like spirits, ghosts, or gods. Second, we have this powerful feeling that our mind, our consciousness, is separate from our physical body. That makes ideas like an immortal soul and an afterlife feel totally natural. And third, we're wired to look for purpose. We see a complex flower and we think it was designed for something. So these intuitions, this is the raw material. This is engine number one.
Okay, so that's our religious toolkit. But where does our moral compass come from? Is it part of the same system? Well, a ton of research now suggests it comes from a completely separate but equally powerful set of mental tools. This is our second unseen engine.
And this is where moral foundations theory comes in. And honestly, this is a real game changer. It argues that morality isn't just one thing, like don't hurt people. Instead, it's more like our sense of taste. We don't have just one taste receptor. We have several: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami. This theory says our moral minds are built on a handful of these core, universal foundations. And here they are, the 5 big ones. You've got care/harm. That's our compassion. Fairness/cheating, our sense of justice. Loyalty/betrayal. That's our team spirit. Authority/subversion, our respect for order and tradition. And finally, purity/degradation, our intuition about what's sacred versus what's profane.
Now, this is where this theory gets really practical and helps explain the world around us. Studies have found that politically, liberals tend to build their moral world almost exclusively on the first two foundations, care and fairness. Conservatives, on the other hand, tend to use all 5 foundations more or less equally, giving a lot of weight to loyalty, authority, and purity. And the key thing to get here is that neither side is immoral. They're just working with a different set of moral taste buds.
Okay, so let's recap. We have two separate built-in engines, one for religious-like thinking and one for our moral intuitions. So the billion-dollar question is, what connects them? How do they get wired together so tightly in the real world? Well, the answer is the most powerful force in human history, culture.
I absolutely love this hand and glove analogy because it makes it so clear. Think of our evolved psychology, those two engines we talked about, as the hand. It has a specific shape with fingers and a thumb. Now, cultural systems like specific religions or laws or even political ideologies, those are the gloves. And for a glove to be wearable, for it to work and spread from person to person, it has to fit the shape of the hand. It has to resonate with our built-in psychology.
And this is the absolute genius of cultural evolution. It's this master weaver. It takes these raw threads of our intuition, our knack for seeing purpose, our gut feeling about fairness, our fierce loyalty to our group, and it weaves them together into these incredible, powerful tapestries, these cohesive stories. Think about the concept of karma. It brilliantly links our fairness intuition, that people should get what they deserve, with our religious intuition, that there's some unseen order to the universe. Culture is what turns the separate parts into a working machine.
So we have this ancient system, right? These psychological engines wired together by the slow, steady work of culture. But what happens when you introduce two massive, modern-day accelerators to that system? What happens when you pour the fuel of mass media and modern economics onto that fire?
I mean, just look at this graph. The number of internet users in the Arab world more than doubled in only 6 years. That's not just a small change, that's a full-blown social earthquake. For centuries, religious conversations were often controlled by the state or kept behind closed doors. Now, all of a sudden, anyone with a phone can become a global broadcaster. And this explains why that media explosion is so incredibly potent. For a long time, in many places, open religious debate was a kind of forbidden fruit, something heavily censored or controlled by authorities. The internet didn't just put the fruit on the table. Our psychology means that because it was forbidden, it became irresistible. And when you suddenly give everyone uncensored access to these sensitive topics, you can take intolerance that was once private and put it on the world stage, which can really fuel conflict.
Okay, get ready for another major twist, something that goes against what almost all of us assume. We tend to think that as countries get richer, they get more secular and more peaceful, right? Well, it turns out that's not always true. Under the right conditions, money can actually make religious conflict worse. So how on earth does that work? Well, it's a kind of three-step chain reaction. First, a country's economy grows, which gives the state a lot more money and power. Second, the state often uses that newfound power to meddle in religious affairs, new regulations, new restrictions, trying to control things. And third, that interference is often seen as an attack by religious groups, which leads to a backlash, and sometimes even violence. So the key takeaway is, it's not the wealth itself that's the problem, it's what the state does with the power that wealth gives it.
So, where does all this leave us? We've got these ancient parts of our psychology, shaped by culture over millennia, and now they're being supercharged by media and money. It's a complicated, volatile mix. And maybe the best way to think about where we are now is through a very old, very wise story. This parable just nails our situation perfectly. Our moral foundations, that psychological toolkit we're all born with, it gives us the capacity for both. Our loyalty foundation can lead to incredible self-sacrifice for our group, but it can also lead to tribalism and hatred of outsiders. Our purity foundation can inspire us to live noble, clean lives, or it can lead to disgust and intolerance. Both of these wolves live inside every single one of us. And that really brings us to the final, most important question. The cultures we build, the media we consume, the economic systems we create, all of these things are, in effect, our way of feeding one wolf or the other. They can be designed to amplify our best instincts for care and fairness, or they can be designed to trigger our worst for tribalism and intolerance. And as we're all now connected in this global village, the consequences of that choice have never been bigger. The question for all of us is, which wolf are we choosing to feed?